Wow. You know, I was gonna come on here with a joking mood, a joking tone, because seeing Kyle Lowry's championship game-winning shot hit the side of the backboard was kind of funny, even though it got tipped, which I had figured it had gotten tipped, because I was like, come on now, nobody could possibly hit the side of a backboard on a championship winning shot. But anyways, we'll get to that. There actually is not going to be much of a laughing, joking mood today, because the tone has it's grown really somber, really sad here in the last hour or so. And that's the thing, right? Normally when these things happen, because I've been doing a lot of barbershop talks for the playoffs, that's by design. Normally I don't use these a whole lot. I try to space them out, but during the playoffs there's like always something, especially during these finals. And normally what I do is I get back to my place, I go to sleep, because I want to sleep on whatever I'm thinking and see if I feel the same way in the morning. But I'm actually recording this one right now, 1 AM, about an hour and a half after this game has ended, and I really have left feeling like I've watched been a part of one of the most emotional, impactful nights in NBA history, or at least the history that I've been around for. I don't recall many nights like this because there's just so much that happened at once. And honestly, as I'm talking, I'm still kind of mentally sorting through everything. We'll start with the soft stuff, or what has become the soft stuff. The game itself, I can't even believe what I just watched. Like, the shift in momentum that I just saw is that it's very similar to what I saw in Game 6 of the 2013 Heat vs Spurs. And so I tweeted out that this is what it felt like. Maybe this isn't exactly what that night felt like in Game 6, but it was comparable. It was similar because the Spurs had the championship won. Of course, that hurt way worse when the Spurs lost for them, because the Spurs lost. They had to win Game 7 in Miami. There wasn't a whole bunch of injuries tilting the series in one team's direction. So yeah, it was different, but you can see the grounds that I'm saying it was similar, because for a good minute, I would say, or a good minute and a half, bro, Toronto ended the Golden State dynasty. I'm gonna tell you how this happened from the perspective of me watching it. When the Raptors grabbed the rebound and the game was tied, me, my dad, and my brother are watching the game, and I said, okay, this is where the tone shifts. This is where the tone of the game shifts. Toronto has been trying to come back the entire night. They're on the home floor. Kevon Looney is now out again with his injury because he's been soldiering through it. Kevin Duran't is out with what we saw was a pretty serious looking injury, which became more serious after the game. And so Toronto grabs that rebound and Kawhi goes on this absolute tear. And before he even hit the first shot, I told them, I said, this is the end of Golden State's dynasty right here. Because this is how it happens. The team takes advantage of the momentum. Golden State has been here for 5 straight years. They've been, they're tired, they're beaten up on. And after I get done with that, Kawhi just goes on an absolute tear. Toronto was going crazy. Golden State goes down 6, and I'm totally convinced we've seen the end of it. Even though there was plenty of time left, it was the momentum of the game. And they actually just proved what me and Eric were talking about on the podcast, just the last podcast that we posted. And I've been saying forever Golden State is the greatest team ever, but throughout this playoff run, you can actually see why they are the greatest team ever. Even if they lose this NBA Finals series, I'm talking about, like, generally the personnel on that team, the play style, the things that they've accomplished, the talent that they do have when they're healthy. We'll look back and say Golden State was the greatest team of all time throughout this run, because this is twice or 3 times now that they've won a game that you looked at and said, how in the hell do they keep doing this? In their 5th title run, they should be ready to just lay down and die. Like, just die already. They should be ready to lay down and kill over. Guys are hurt. They've won so much by now. Like, most teams die at these points. The game that Kevin Durant was initially injured against the Houston Rockets, that was a game I felt like a lot of people felt like that was Houston's for the taking, and they couldn't do it. And then Steph Curry had an off first half, and it was Game 6 at Houston. And they still found a way to pull it off. Klay Thompson carried them until Steph Curry got on, and then they won that game without KD. And so tonight, more so than ever, this is just, you hear those sayings, right? Like championship pedigree and all these cliche ass sayings, right? But when you watch Golden State, this is what it is. It is being down 6 points to a team that has been better than you throughout the series, and being down 6 in a game where you've lost the heart and soul of your team for what looks like it will be an extended time. Now it looks like the team's outlook may be changed forever. This core's outlook, it may be changed forever now. And still finding a way, still finding a will to be able to fight and win that game when most people probably wouldn't care at that point. They'd be ready to go. And so Toronto getting ready to celebrate a championship on their home floor, let it slip straight through their fingers. Nobody yet knows why Nick Nurse called that momentum killing timeout. It was such an unexpected timeout that I actually had to find out about it through Twitter, and I was watching the game because there was so much hype going on that I didn't realize that Toronto had actually called a timeout. I just thought, I don't know why I thought the game stopped. But yeah, that was a very untimely timeout, and not gonna say it cost the Raptors a game, but little micro decisions like that, they feed into a bigger picture. And so whatever, now the series is 3-2. Toronto, I equate what just happened to them. It's like seeing a hot air balloon just lose all of its air all at one moment, right? Like it was ready, it was right there, and then it's just all gone now. They've got to rebuild momentum again because Golden State is going to be a madhouse in Game 6, and that's another story right now. Because Toronto still has an edge this series, they still have Game 7 at home, and they have an edge because Kevin Durant, we can confidently say, is gone for the series now, and possibly longer. So let's go ahead and talk about that because that's the part that's really bothering me tonight. Isn't it crazy just how much the NBA is like a storybook? Like, no, really, I joke about it on Twitter a lot, right? But think about the things that we've seen over the last few years. The things that just happen that make it seem like it's really a story being written. I think the easiest one to look at is the year 2016. We rarely ever see 3-1 leads blown in history, and on that year we see the 73-9 Golden State Warriors come back against the Thunder, and then they lose their 3-1 lead against the Cavaliers in back-to-back series, and that's how LeBron James brings the first title to Cleveland, which is something he promised a while ago. Of course, we had the block and the shot in that game. Like, that year literally felt like somebody was just sitting down writing a book and we're just a part of it. And so it's working in a negative way now because after all these years of people violently hating Kevin Durant for his decision, people calling him all types of stuff for going to Golden State, you guys lived through it, right? If you've been watching basketball since the 2017 season, you've lived through this whole golden dynasty with Kevin Durant as a part of it. And it seems the way that it's going to end is by the rupture of an Achilles. And although it's 1 o'clock in the morning, I can confidently say that it's at least a partial tear because Bob Myers is on national TV, was on national TV crying, I guess, about the whole situation. He came out and confirmed that it is an Achilles injury. He was all sorts of choked up. We could see the video of what looked like his calf. It looked like something in his calf exploding. That's what it looked like, and a lot of people equated that to a pop. We saw him reaching for his Achilles the same exact way we saw Kobe Bryant. The pictures look identical, and that's just so sad. If you guys remember the picture of Kobe Bryant on the floor feeling for his Achilles, the fact that we now have, if there's like a museum, we now have Kobe with that pose and Kevin Durant with that pose, two of the titans of this game feeling for their Achilles, really possibly cutting their prime short. We know it cut Kobe Bryant's prime short. And I'd be jumping the gun to say any more right now with Kevin Durant, but based off of what we know, this is probably a serious Achilles injury. I'm going to take my chances here. I'm going to go ahead and record this because I doubt Bob Myers was out there crying over an Achilles strain. So first of all, I said this in my last Barbershop talk. The very last one, I said that at this point, I didn't think it made any more sense for Kevin Durant to come back. I said that people already don't respect the 2 championships that he has with Golden State. People were probably not going to respect a third. I mean, if they came back down from 3-1, you kind of have to respect that one regardless because Toronto is a good team, and that would be a feat regardless. With this roster that they have, that would be a feat. But I also said, you know, because there was all these stories coming out, and maybe they were just rumors, but there was all these stories about, oh, Golden State is confused on why Kevin Durant hasn't come back yet. There's whispers about what is he doing and all this good stuff. And I was just sitting back thinking, well, I was thinking what I said in the last Barbershop talk. And again, that was something that came from my brother. He brought it to my attention. This is a free agency year for Kevin Durant. There's bags on the line this summer. There's bag negotiations going on this summer. So if he comes back and plays on a leg injury, because again, I'm reiterating, I don't need to reiterate, you guys know those are the worst types. There's risk involved in that. And we saw it looks like we've seen the extreme outcome of that tonight. It's an event that could have just changed the outlook of Kevin Durant's career. It's an event that has probably changed the outlook of the Golden State Warriors past this series. And it's an event that could completely change the 2020s because Kevin Durant still has, or had or whatever, a ton of basketball left in him, a ton of superstar top of the league basketball left. So in the past Barbershop talks, I was just saying I didn't think he was coming back anymore because at the point that they were down 3-1 and you get to game 5, I was like, it's going to take a gargantuan effort to even get back. Regardless of if he came back 100%, it would still take a massive effort to beat the Toronto team because 3-1, only a couple things have to go right for the other team to win. And so the line of thinking began to be, if Kevin Durant could have played in the NBA Finals, I'm sure he would have by now. But whatever, he goes from, again, I told y'all I saw him in the locker room, I didn't think he was walking correctly, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I didn't think so. And he went from that to playing in Game 5 with no minute restrictions, not even a minute restriction. So they were going all out. Kevin Durant was the secret weapon, he was going to change the entire series, 3-1 comeback, here we go. And he only got about 12 minutes, he was on pace for a mega night, he was hitting the shots. He didn't quite look, the same in terms of aggressiveness, but he stroked a couple 3-pointers, and then the injury happened. And that's why Bob Myers was crying, because I think deep down a lot of people didn't think this was a good idea, for the reasons that I just stated. The reasons that I had stated before this happened. The reasons that a lot of you probably had already thought. I wasn't saying anything special. It just didn't look like a great idea, it didn't look necessary. But that's also why I felt so bad for Kevin Durant, seeing him limp out, because by putting himself in that position, in my opinion, Kevin Durant had given everything you could ask for from a competitor. He came out when his team was in the most dire of situations. It looked like he was about to help change the outcome, and now just everything is changed. All because he wanted to give us all. And that right there ties directly back into the storybook part that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. How about what became the most hated player in NBA history in one summer, going to this team, winning a couple of times, and not only probably ending the Golden Dynasty through his injury, but also completely changing the trajectory of his career. What are the fucking chances of something like that, of a story like that? It sounds like a movie. It's ridiculous. So if this is a movie, then what's the sequel going on from here? From what I understand, Kevin Durant has a player option on his contract, which means if he were to pick up his option, say he was healthy and he picked up the option, that means he would be playing in Golden State next year and he'd become a free agent in 2020. Now, here's what I think I know. An Achilles injury in June means he is, and again, this is probably dependent on it being a full rupture or a partial rupture, because I've never actually seen the partial rupture of an Achilles, so I don't know how many months that runs anybody or if that's less than a full rupture. But an Achilles rupture that we're used to, the ones that we're used to seeing, those cost players like 9 to 12 months. So like with Cousins, he missed what, about 11 months, right? He missed very close to a year. So if you're talking about Kevin Durant, if it turns out being the worst case scenario, he's either, or let's just go ahead and we don't know what it is, right? He's probably going to miss most or all of next season, regardless of who his contract is under. So that kind of sounds like he'll probably be picking up his option for Golden State for the 2019-2020 season, because that's a guaranteed, what, I think I saw the number 31 million. That's a guaranteed portion of money and it's his option, so he has no reason to gamble that right now if this is going to be a serious Achilles injury, because then you're going into the free market and you're renegotiating a contract with some team. And somebody on Twitter did bring it to my attention. They were like, look, Achilles or no Achilles, somebody's going to throw a bag at Kevin Durant. And maybe he has a point. Teams have done crazier things. Throwing a bag at a player who just coming off a freshly popped Achilles and you don't know what, where his career is going, tying up a ton of money in him is that's probably not a great business decision just based off the history of these injuries. But hey, somebody might look at it as a steal and say, hey, fuck this, Kevin Durant, if he's going to be on the free market, we're going to do whatever we can to get him and we'll leave the rest up to God. That might be a thing. But I think the most likely outcome here, again, partial tear or full tear, I think he will pick up his option this summer because the market is just not going to be as big, I don't think. Because whoever is signing Kevin Durant this summer is doing so with the knowledge that he's not going to help your team immediately. At this point, it does not seem like he will help the team immediately. And most people were signing KD to go right into contending. That's what the plan was for the Knicks. That's what we thought of. If for some reason he went to go play with LeBron, then we're thinking about them getting a title like now. So this changes all that. So then he becomes a free agent in 2020, and this version of history, or this version of this timeline that I'm talking about, he picks up his option, becomes a free agent next summer, but he will probably have barely played any basketball because, again, an Achilles tear in June means pretty much no basketball the whole next year, and I doubt it'll be something like Golden State makes the finals next year and then he pops back up and he plays his first basketball in the playoffs of the finals. I don't think that's likely, but I've seen stranger things, who knows. So at the point that he's a free agent in 2020 and we haven't seen him play basketball in a year, again, the market, what is it? Is it somebody's gonna max him up? Because at that point you have to be smart enough to know, look what the Achilles just did to DeMarcus Cousins, right? Again, we don't know the full extent of where he was because he came back to this stacked Golden State team, but we do know that he wound up with another injury, which may be totally unrelated. But we know these things with ACL injuries, with Achilles injuries, players rarely ever come back the same, and we usually see more problems afterwards. So what I'm getting at here is next summer, Golden State may be able to just keep Kevin Durant. They might not have to throw a ridiculous amount of money to keep him. They might be able to get him on some, dare I say, bargain and Kevin Durant in the same sentence, bargain of a contract. This is assuming that teams use caution because of the Achilles. And maybe the guy I was talking to on Twitter, maybe he's right. Maybe teams are just going to say this is KD. If somebody doesn't want to appreciate him even off the Achilles, we will, and maybe it'll just go that way, right? But I've been thinking this whole time, I just wanted to say that because when that night happened in Houston and I thought he tore his Achilles that night, my immediate thought was KD's probably going to be on the Warriors long term now because of the way things are going to work out with his contract. And now that's an option that's on the table. And then also now, how does the NBA look in the 2020s? Going into this, Kevin Duran't would be only what, like 30, 31 years old, so he's got, I couldn't speculate on how long he would be amazing for, but you could say probably for another like 3 or 4 years he'd be like full blast prime Kevin Duran't, and even after that he'd still be really good. But if you take him out of the picture of a whole season, well, now there's no super team in Golden State. Golden State's got a lot of questions to answer because, again, Kevin Duran't picks up his option this summer, but he doesn't play the whole season next year. Where does that leave Golden State in terms of personnel and what they can do? How are they building the team, and when are they expecting him to come back? We're getting into the part of the timeline with questions I can't answer because there's a million moving parts now with all the teams around the league. NBA 2020s is a lot less certain. Like this is potentially an injury that changes the next era of basketball. Crazy fucking night in the NBA, man. So much to sort through. I'll be waiting for the MRI results tomorrow. Again, I felt comfortable going ahead and laying out all these scenarios because I don't think Bob Myers got on stage to cry talking about a strain. I don't think Kevin Durant's calf had a mini like ripple in it for a strain. I think it's serious. And we're gonna find out how serious tomorrow. And yeah, I'm not as devastated. I don't sound devastated, but after it happened and I realized like all the implications, I really am devastated because I don't care like if we see the same champion every single year in the NBA. I don't ever want to see an all-time great, any player, but especially an all-time great. I don't want to see any career-altering injuries. Like, fuck that shit, man. The night that Kobe got injured, or the morning I woke up and I found out he had an Achilles, I was distraught then. Yeah, man, the game is better with these guys. These guys are ambassadors for the game. It's much bigger. It's much bigger than just who wins a championship every year or the state of the league. Like, it's a devastating thing, man. This is a devastating thing. We'll hope for the best for an MRI, for what the MRI holds tomorrow, but right now, it does not sound like anything good. So let me know your thoughts about everything. Durant's injury, the game. Let me know all that in the comment section. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.